So here's our last card, and I'm just going back to the Koi watercolor paints. I love these paints. They're very vibrant. They are a kid. They're kind of a kid set or a first set, but they're wonderful colors, real bright. They paint well. They're not chalky. A lot of kids paints will be chalky, and these aren't really kids paints, but they're more of a beginner paint set. But I love the colors and I love the paints. So okay. So I'm going to do the leaves like like I always do the leaves. And I'm going to add the lightest color first here. I'll do a light green on all the leaves, and then I'll go back and add the dark green. While the light green dries, I'm going to go ahead and paint the inside of the box. And actually I was going to paint the whole thing, but I realized that just the bottom of the box was all I needed to paint. So there's a really faint gray line around the bottom, and you'll just want to paint up to the gray line or a little tiny bit past. And I want this to contrast the colors, the pink colors, and I don't want them to contrast really badly, but I want it to have a bit of a pop. So I'm going to do blue with a little bit of um, purple here, just to give it something different from the all the pink and red on the Valentines. So there I'm at. It's still really wet, and it's kind of nice to work that way. And seeing on the video, I have a little smiley face there. I don't think it turned out that way in the end, but right there it did. And I'm going to splatter some red on it just because, or pink, actually, that was pink, and some purple, just to give it some kind of a fun, splashy background. Be careful with that because it can get, I noticed that it got on one of the leaves there, and that's probably not the best thing. But now I'm going to color in the little heart because that'll be part of the pile up of the images in the middle. So what we're making here is a matchbox, and this probably wouldn't be something you could send in the mail, but you could hand it to somebody, and it's going to be a matchbox, and then that it's going to be have a decoration inside, and that big heart right at the palm of my hand there is going to be cut out of the top of the box. So okay, everything's kind of drying here, so I'm going to do a really splish splashy background on this is going to be the cover where the matchbox box slips into. So I want it to kind of blend in with the flowers and things, so I'm going to use the same color tones as the flowers and the everything I'm going to decorate, but I'm also going to use just a little bit of blue in it and some pink, and it'll just coincide with the inside colors very well. I'm working really wet. I did not pre-wet this paper because it's a student grade paper. It takes a little while to dry. It has more sizing on it, so it's easier to work real wet on without pre-wetting. I on a artist grade paper, you'll have to pre-wet it and then add your color in. On this paper, which is a student grade paper, it has just kind of a glossy finish to it. Not glossy, but if you've ever worked with watercolor paper, you'll know what I mean. If you want to, I always do my cards on student grade because I know most people don't keep cards around forever, and it doesn't need to have perfect pH balance and everything that an actual artist color watercolor paper would have. Now I'm just finishing up the details of the flowers, and I'm going to put a little bit of orange into this just because it'll pop from the blue. Not a lot. I'm just going to add it to a couple of the flowers on the inside. Um, to me, it's just a contrast color, and it'll help it pop up from the blue background there. So I'll finish those details. So now I'm adding the dark green down the vein of the leaf and then to one side mostly and down the edge of the other side, just like I have painted all the other leaves. So because I'm an impatient person or non-patient person, I'm actually cutting off the front edge of this card so I can cut out the middle. The middle of the box is dried for the most part. So I'm going to lay that to the side, and I'm going to cut out the middle of the box so that you can see how to cut it out yourself. After cutting around the box, I realized it's way too wet to cut out right now. So I'm going to let it sit to dry, and then we're going to paint the outside of the box. Okay, so now the box is dry, and I want to cut it out. You could cut it out after you paint the back, but I'm going to cut it out before. And so if you notice on the box, there's a darker line and a lighter line. You want, see how I cut into almost to the corner of the box there, but left a flap on the other one? That flap's important because it holds the box together. So you only want to cut that on one side. See how I only cut to half of the flap? And then on this side, I'll cut into the corner of the image. And if you've ever made a match box before, you'll understand, but I'm trying to see on, it's only, so that flap I cut totally off, or totally separate that little flap, and then I leave it on this edge of it. And you're going to see that I actually mess up here. So this next one, I actually cut into it a little ways, and I shouldn't have. See, I overcut, which you don't want to do. It'll kind of mess up your box a little, so don't do that. And that this side, then I cut into it. There's going to be this little extra cut on that flap that might not hold it securely. You could always tape it. So I'm flipping it over, and that'll be the outside of the box. And I'm just going to do a same color scheme on that box, because you're going to see the end of it when you look at that. I'm using a little bit of pink, a little bit of purple, then I'll add some blue tones to it also. So now that I'm almost done with the box, I'm going to let it dry for a little while. And it'll kind of, the colors will kind of move together. I decided to go ahead and add the glitter glue before I cut everything out. And so this is where I'm adding all the glitter glue. I'm going to add the clear first, and then I'll add the gold. Just the gold I use mainly as accents, just little accents, not major accents. So I really want to add a nice gold edge around that heart. So wherever it's black, I've covered it up with gold. And once that gold dries, I will use an X-Acto blade to cut out the middle of the heart, because that heart is going to be the cutout that you see the flowers through inside the box. So I went ahead and added a little bit of glitter to the inside of that box, and I scored the edges. And there's two ways you can score an edge, but an easy way, if you have an X-Acto blade, you turn it over to the non-sharp side and just score along the edge, or you can take a scissor and score along the edge with the scissor not open. You can there's a lot of ways you can do it. You just need a semi dull sharp object. You don't want it real sharp that'll cut like an X-Acto, but and then you can use the edge of the scissors to press everything down, or you can use your finger. So now I'm just trying to fold all the edges because I've scored them all and all the way around, and now I'm going to fold them. And the easiest way to do this is to do these large edges first, the long edge first, because that's what has the tabs on it. So you have to glue them down, and it's watercolor paper, so it requires a lot of glue, and I don't think I used enough here, so I might have to go over them again. And then you do the short edges. You put a lot of glue on them, the short edges, because the tabs are going to be there, and it's good to put a little bit of glue on each side of the tab too if you can. And do it to both ends, because you have to kind of do both ends at the same time. I'm going to add a little bit more glue to that flap that is just not staying down. Okay, so you'll see that you pull up the long ends and then you pull up the short ends and cover the flaps. And that's what keeps the box a box. And that's why cutting, see, that's the edge that I actually cut into, and it's not wanting to stay together because half of it's cut. So be careful you don't cut those edges. So now I'm just adding pressure to the edges to help it stick. So my videotaping got totally messed up, and I just where I glued the images inside the Valentine. But if you refer to card number 7, all you do is use the zigzag pieces of paper and V pieces of paper to kind of build your flowers up in the air to create a 3D effect for your matchbook. And I found these wonderful stickers at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to put one on the back so that you can write your message, so you have something to write on. And I apply it really crookedly, so I try to reapply it, and it's also very crooked. So apply it as you will, and write your little love note back there, and it'll be tucked behind as kind of a little surprise on the back of the Valentine. All right, so you just slip it in your box and give it to someone you love. Happy Valentine's Day.